We're gonna be live in about 6 or 7 seconds. We are live.
All right, I'll call the meeting to order. Executive Order 202.1 temporarily suspends in-person public meetings. Public comment and questions relating to the budget were taken ahead of time for the budget hearing. Any questions regarding the proposed budget may be made by emailing BOE@waltoncsd.org or by calling 607-865-4116 extension 6134 and leaving a message. They will be addressed at the June 2nd Board of Education regular meeting. At this time, I will ask for a motion to recess from regular meeting to hold the annual budget hearing. Do I have a motion?
Make the motion.
Second?
Arnie will second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, we are in the budget hearing. I will request that we dispense the reading of the adjourned annual meeting notice. You can find printed copies are available on the district's website at waltoncsd.org. We have a motion to dispense the reading of the annual meeting notice.
Ready to move it.
Second?
Second.
All
Kevin.
in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, we are up to budget presentation. I will turn this over to Interim Superintendent, Mr. Thomas, and Business Manager, Mrs. Meg Hungerford.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us, those of you who have decided to join us this evening. We have entered into or are entering into an interesting time. And nevertheless, we are striving to go forward with a good budget this year. I do believe it is a good budget. Meg is going to talk about the details of that budget, but I do want to stress that we had some priorities going forward into July 1 that we did our best to honor. There were some pieces with respect to a request for the inclusion of indoor track for our winter track, and we were able to take care of that. There was also some significant discussion and feelings on the part of the board that we should see if we can put together a position of not having to be able to charge admission to our local athletic events. And that is in the budget. We're able to do that. So those are some value pieces for the public. We were asked by the board to keep the rate of the levy at a reasonable level, and we've been able to keep that levy at 2% level. There are no real surprises in terms of propositions for the coming year. We have our bus lease again. Of course, we have the proposition on the budget, and then there is the voting of the board seats, and those are all items that have gone on in past years here in Walton as well. The other thing that we have tried to work on is looking at the future. There have been a number of years where we haven't had funds set aside to replace classroom furniture when that is needed. We've been able to have that placed into the budget. And we also have taken a look at being able to fund some small projects in-house that would be beyond maintenance and normal wear for the district. And this is called a capital outlay project. Meg may be able to explain a little bit more about that to you, but we've been able to put that into the budget as well. The nice part about all that is we've been able to put that all together and still have a slight reduction in the budget. And we certainly hope that we will have community support for continuing the programs that we have been continuing working on in Walton through all of these years. So with that introductory statement, I'd like to turn it over to Meg Hungerford, who has done a fantastic job of helping us stay financially sound with the district. Meg.
Thank you, Larry. So I have some information tonight on the budget, just to give you some background and overview to what is being proposed for next year's budget. The proposed budget is $21,549,412. This is a decrease of about $200,000, or just under 1% from the adopted budget from the 1920 school year. This chart shows some recent history of budgets of the district. You can see that in 17-18, the budget increased just under 2%, 18-19.
Meg, we don't have, are you sharing your screen yet?
I am.
Not
Okay,
seeing it.
we're not seeing it yet.
You might have to move it over. Are you using 2 monitors?
No.
Oh,
Meg, what happens when you try to do screen share? What's this? There we go.
Working on it.
Here it comes.
There we go.
Better?
Yep, perfect.
Thank
Sorry
you.
about that. So I'll just back up. This one shows the overview of the proposed budget for next year as compared to this year's budget. As I mentioned, it's a decrease of just under $200,000, or just under 1%. This chart simply shows some comparison of recent budgets. For the last 3 years, the budget has increased. In 17 and 18, it was 1.97%. 18-19, it was 1.63%. Last year, the budget increased 4.22%. So having a budget that decreases overall spending is certainly different than what the district has experienced in the last few years. And that's in light of what we're all experiencing now with anticipated changes in state aid. This chart just shows a comparison of proposed revenues for next year as compared to those that were budgeted for this year. You'll see that the black line is the current year's budget, and the orange bar is the amount proposed for next year. So you'll see that property taxes shows a slight increase, while state aids shows a slight decrease. Other revenue items is also decreased slightly, as is appropriated fund balance. This chart shows you increases again for the last several years in the district's tax levy. It's increased from $6,447,000 in 17-18 to a proposal of $6,812,000 for the upcoming school year. This does represent a 2% increase in the tax levy, and it's within the calculation of the tax cap, or an increase of approximately $133,000. This chart shows you a comparison of current year anticipated state aid as compared to what we're looking at for next year. You'll see that in total, state aid is anticipated to decrease about $100,000. That's new. Last year, we were fortunate to have a fairly significant increase in state aid, and we had hoped that state aid would be increased again this year, but that did not happen. This is the projected state aid that was included with the executive budget and the legislative budget that was adopted. We do not know yet if these amounts will be reduced further during the school year, but we've adopted and proposed a budget that includes the state aid amounts that were projected in the state's budget that was adopted. As part of the budget that was adopted by New York State, they did make a pandemic adjustment to the projected aid for the school district, which reduced our aid by $537,000. However, They've proposed that that reduction would be made up through the federal CARES restoration dollars, so the net impact would be 0. Again, as I mentioned, this proposed budget assumes that New York State aid is not reduced further. The district is working on a contingency plan to identify measures that could be taken as needed during the school year if indeed we do receive information from the state that aid would be reduced further. Next, we'll look at the appropriation or the expenditure side of the budget. This chart breaks the expenditures down into various categories. General support includes things like the business office or buildings and grounds, the district's clerk's office. Education is obviously teachers and extracurricular things like that. Transportation is the operation of the bus garage and the buses. Benefits is employee benefits related to our current employees as well as retirees. And then debt service is payments on bonds that the district has outstanding. And you'll see there's a new category, capital outlay. Larry mentioned this briefly. The proposed budget has a $100,000 capital outlay project included. New York State Education Department allows us to do these annual capital outlay projects to address needs of the district, capital needs of the district outside of a large capital project. It's a much more efficient process. This is something that the district hasn't really engaged in the past, and we're looking to make it an annual occurrence. The first year is the biggest bullet that we have to bite by providing a whole $100,000 in the budget. We anticipate that next year in 2021-22, we would receive approximately $86,000 of that expenditure back in state aid. And then we'd have to only add another $14,000 out of the district's funds to be able to do another project in following years, and that cycle would continue. This again looks at the expenditures broken down in some different categories. Out of the proposed budget of $21 million, just under $9 million is related to wages for district employees. There's a small amount of funds budgeted for equipment, some in athletics and some in buildings and maintenance. Contractual expenses are items that the district purchases, material and supplies, or items that they have, work that they have hired done. There's a portion of the budget that is used to purchase services from BOCES, and we do receive a significant amount of aid back on those expenditures. And then you have benefits related to health and retirement benefits for the employees. Again, debt service and capital outlay. Some highlights from the budget. Again, and we mentioned that there's an increase of 2% in the tax levy. This is within the tax cap. There was a program that this district had looked into. It's a new program being offered by BOCES, which is referred to as the Lighthouse Program. That is a program that we were originally looking to include in the budget, but we've removed that from draft budgets and would hope to include it to be able to offer those services in the future. As Larry mentioned, we added an indoor track program. There were several presentations to the board last fall and over the winter expressing a desire to have this program reinstituted by the district. The collection of admissions at football, regular season football and basketball games has been eliminated, along with the expense of having the district have ticket takers present at those events to collect those admissions. So all regular season basketball and football games would be free for spectators. There are 2 positions within the district, one teaching position and one buildings and grounds position that are eliminated in the budget due to those positions are being vacated through attrition, through retirements, and they're not anticipated to be replaced in next year's budget. There is a new lease included in the budget at an estimated cost of $52,500 a year for the lease of 3 new buses. This is the final group of buses that we will be adding to our 5-year cycle for bus replacements. As Larry mentioned, we've added $15,000 for anticipated purchase of classroom furniture. We don't know specifically how many classrooms this will address. We anticipate 2 to 3, but it will vary depending on the type of classroom that's being that furniture is being purchased for, and we'll work with the principals to determine what classrooms have the highest need to purchase that furniture for next year. We are working to roll out the OneToOne Device program. Rick Robinson and IT have worked hard to get this program set up, and we were able to do some rollout of it with the remote schooling that's occurring now, but we have a significant number of additional devices that are being purchased and will be made available to students at the beginning of the school year. We also experienced a 15% increase in our health insurance premiums, and that is accommodated within the budget. The district last year did change health insurance plans, and while we did experience a 15% increase, the premiums that are projected for next year are still less than what was being proposed by our prior health insurance company for the current year. So there is definitely a savings to the district of that change. We've also shifted some payroll and benefit expenses from the general fund to federal funds, and then moved professional development type expenses that we had been paying out of federal funds to the general fund. The goal there was that some of those professional development expenses can be purchased through BOCES, and we would generate additional aid on those. So we're just shifting where items are being paid for so that the district can maximize some aid that's available. Larry and I have both mentioned, probably ad nauseum now, the $100,000 capital project that has been included in the budget. And we have maintained the appropriations for debt service at the current level, this year's levels. We do have some bonds that are maturing and the district is finishing paying off. However, we are currently planning for a new capital project that is being proposed. That would be presented to voters later this fall to be voted on, but it will include expenditures related to maintaining some of the district's critical infrastructure like roofs and driveways, some things that are very needed here in the district to keep the bones intact and to address those needs. So we are anticipating debt service coming on to address those needs that would replace what is retiring. Some of these, we put together some budget frequently asked questions. Some of these will repeat things that I've already mentioned, but I just wanted to go through it again, just to sort of recap. How much is the proposed budget for the 2020-2021 Walton School District? The proposed budget is $21,549,412. And again, this is a decrease of $196,212 from the current budget. How much is the tax levy in the proposed budget? The tax levy is $6,812,000, which is an increase of $133,277 from last year or the current fiscal year. You might ask, if the budget's decreasing, why is the tax levy increasing? There are several other sources of funds to the district that have decreased in the proposed budget. They're primarily, as I mentioned, state aid, and also we've reduced the amount of unassigned fund balance that is being appropriated to the budget to help fund it. In the current year, that's about $700,000, and we've reduced it for the proposed budget to $525,000. You may ask, how much will this increase in the tax levy make my taxes go up? So currently, our tax rate is $12.61 per $100,000 of assessed value for a property that has a 100% equalization rate. Most of the properties within the school district have a 100% equalization rate, but there are some towns that are part of the school district that don't have an equalization rate of 100%. So those would vary a little bit. But for most properties, the current tax rate of $12.61 is anticipated to go up to $12.86 per $100,000 of assessed value. So for a property that's valued at $100,000, the tax bill would increase approximately $25 from $1,261 to $1,286. I had mentioned that some other sources of funds to support the budget were decreasing. One of them that was mentioned specifically was fund balance that's appropriated to the budget to help fund it. You may ask why this is being decreased. The district needs to keep a certain level of fund balance to help with cash flow and to meet unanticipated expenses that might arise during the year. New York state law restricts that amount to 4% of the budget. Recently, a controller's office audit of the district identified that our fund balance has exceeded 4%, and the district has taken steps to address this. This included the transfer of $500,000 to a capital reserve, as well as the reduction of excess fund balance amounts that were appropriated to the budget. It's important to remember that fund balance should not be used to fund ongoing operating expenses. So when we establish our budget for the year, we need to have recurring revenues to fund our recurring expenses. Fund balance is a one-time source of revenue, and when we do use it, we should be using it for one-time or capital type expenses. Some items that we've mentioned, again, just recapping what's new in the budget. We have the final group of buses that we're adding. This is a separate proposition on the ballot, and it will complete the transition of our entire bus fleet to 5-year leases. We have the proposed transfer of $100,000 to the capital projects fund to fund the capital outlay project. As I mentioned previously, if we spend $100,000 on a capital outlay project in 2020, 2021, we'll receive approximately $86,000 back in the form of state aid the following year. And then we can add $14,000 to that to continue doing $100,000 projects each year. For 2020, 2021, we're focusing on some improvements to the music suite in the middle school, high school, and also some improved flooring and ceiling improvements to one of the special education classrooms. We're looking to include an amount of money. Again, it's $15,000 that we've included in the proposed budget to begin funding an annual replacement of furniture for classrooms. The admission fees to the regular season games are eliminated and the indoor track program is added, and the OneToOne Device rollout is included. What happens if the budget does not pass? If the budget's not approved by the voters under current law, the board could choose to either conduct a revote, which would happen later in June, or adopt a contingency budget. A contingency budget would limit the tax levy to the amount that was levied in the current fiscal year and would require the reduction of certain appropriations included in the budget. Examples of things that would be required to be eliminated from the budget in the event of a contingency budget include equipment, public use of school grounds if there is any district costs associated with that use, non-essential maintenance, as well as capital expenditures. So there's things in the budget that we think are really important to the district, such as adding that last group of leased buses or starting to institute these capital outlay projects so that we can address some of the capital needs of the district. And those things are very important. And without the public support of the budget, we won't be able to continue with those things. A few slides ago, we talked about the fund balance of the district. And this is a chart that shows the fund balance history over the last several years of the district. And you can see right here, unassigned ending fund balance, that number has ranged from 1.2 million to 1.3, and at the end of last year was actually up to 1.4. With the decision that the board made several months ago to add some to the capital reserve to fund future projects for the district, we're anticipating that we'll end the year with a slight decrease in that unassigned fund balance. However, a lot has changed over the last few months, and it's still unknown. We'll have some expenditures for the end of the school year that are greater than we anticipated due to this closure, and some that are less. So you'll see here highlighted in yellow that I had projected an operating surplus for the year of $200,000. It's really unknown at this point. That was a projection that was done back in March, beginning of April, before a lot of this the effects of this closure had really rolled out. So it's important for the districts to look at fund balance periodically and be sure that we are monitoring our fund balance and not creating excess fund balance. At the same time, we don't want to take all of our fund balance and reduce it all at once. This needs to be a process of us monitoring it and making good choices about how to apply it to the needs of the district. As Rhonda mentioned earlier, if there are questions about the proposed budget, they can be submitted to boe@waltoncsd.org or by calling 607-865-4116 extension 6134 and leaving a message with your question and contact information. At this point, we've received no questions either via email or via that mailbox. If we do receive questions between now and June 2nd, we will address those at the June 2nd board meeting as part of the public meeting on that day. Just as a reminder, absentee ballots were mailed out by the district on Friday. So many people, if they haven't received them already, should start receiving them in the mail. We ask that you complete those and mail them back. A reminder that they need to be received by the district clerk by 5 p.m. on June 9th in order to be counted. We look forward to your support of the proposed budget. And if anybody has any questions, I'd hope that you'll reach out with them.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Meg.
Thanks,
That is
Meg.
so detailed. So much work went into that. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
So
Any of the board members have questions?
if I could just say a couple closing remarks, I just wanted to recap a little bit that you know, we've been really at this process, and Meg has spearheaded it, of course, but we've been at this process since actually back in November. There was, you know, we started having conversation about the coming budget, and we're certainly looking at some of the items that the board wanted us to take a look at in terms of maintaining program and working on some new program, of which, like the one-to-one device piece, is so important. And if we didn't have some of those one-to-one devices right now, we'd be having a lot of issues with respect to educating our children. But we also tried to look at a couple other items, and one was, how can we invest your dollars and the state's dollars more in smarter? How can we be smarter about it? And when we're talking about the capital outlay project, we're talking about a way of funding something that we can all benefit from, and at the same time try to generate additional aid to come back into the district. And that was very important for us, by moving some of those dollars, as Meg talked about earlier on, from some of the federal funding over into our general fund. Basically, we just flipped some funding around. But by doing that, we have the option of generating more aid back into Walton's coffers. And you know, that's, for us, that was just smarter investing. And then the other thing that we are really looking to is, and that's the future of the building plant, of our ability to provide those programs. And part of that is offering programs, yes, but part of it is also just simply having a roof over your head, being able to make sure that your facilities are safe and up to date. They don't necessarily have to be state of the art, but they do have to be up to date. And that's where the capital outlay project comes in. That's where some of the things that we were looking at as a facilities committee in the future as well. So I want to thank Meg for and everybody else on the staff, because we put a lot of meetings together to look at some of these things and how could we do some things smarter. And we certainly hope that we'll get community support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry. And thank everyone that worked on this, because this is one of the most detailed budget presentations I can remember in a long time. And it just makes it so much easier in the way that you have explained it, Meg. Makes it much easier to understand where we are, what direction we're heading in. And I think it'll help, you know, the voters, you know, to make a decision that they know where their money is being spent. So thank you very much.
I should add that this information, as well as a great deal of information about the budget, is available on the district's website. There is a budget page. There's a budget book that Corey's helped to put together that includes a detailed listing of the revenues and expenses that are projected for the district, as well as the district's report card. Information on property tax exemptions. There's a great deal of information there if anyone's interested. Those books are available in the district office and the middle school and the high school office between 9 and 3, between now and the day of the vote, as well as on the district's website.
Okay. And just to remind everybody, the vote is June 9th. Your ballots need to be to the district office by 5 p.m. Qualified voters, 18 years of age or older, citizen of the United States, residents of the district for 30 days or more, not otherwise disqualified to vote. And there are 2 seats up for election, 3-year term, July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2023. And currently, those positions are Graydon Dutcher and Paul Wood. So thank you again. Were there any questions from the board? No? Okay. Do we have a motion to return to regular session?
Move it. Arnie will second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, if there's nothing else, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that
Move
motion.
Okay, Paul and
Kevin.
Kevin? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank
a
you
good
again,
evening,
Larry and
everyone.
Meg. It was
Have a
very
good night.
helpful.
Good night.
Thank you, Meg.
Night.